Hello, students. It's time for another Flora and Ulysses read aloud. I'm going to do this one a little bit different. Instead of doing one big video, I'm going to record it in small chunks. That way you'll have some natural breaks. So if you need to walk away, take a break, have a snack, go outside for a bit, you'll have a natural spot to do that. I still want you to watch all of the videos because you'll have another reader response, but you don't have to do it all in one sitting because it's a lot. Okay, we are on chapter 17. Let's see what happens. Oh, and just to remind you, when last we left Flora, she was with her mother and Tootie, and her mother had seen the squirrel, and then she heard someone at the door, and she thought it might be her father, maybe, but it was actually someone else. But we don't know who yet. It's just a small voice who said, "Great Aunt Tootie." There was a boy at the door. He was short. His hair was so blonde that it looked almost white. His eyes were hidden behind enormous dark glasses. In addition to Terrible Things Can Happen to You, the illuminated adventures of the amazing Incandesto regularly featured a second bonus comic entitled The Criminal Element is Among Us. The Criminal Element gave very specific pointers on how to never, ever be fooled by a criminal. And one of the often repeated dictums, or rules, or sayings, of the criminal element was that the best way to get to know a person was to look him or her directly in the eye. Flora tried to look the boy in the eye, but all she saw was a reflection of herself in his dark glasses. She looked short and uncertain, like an accordion in pajamas. You know, when your reflection looks weird on some surfaces. "William," said Tootie, "I told you to stay put." "I heard screaming," said the boy. His voice was high and thin. "I was concerned. I came as fast as I could. Unfortunately, on the way here, I had a small but extremely violent encounter with some variety of shrub, and now I'm bleeding. I think I'm bleeding. I'm pretty sure I smell blood, but no one should be concerned. Please don't overreact." "This is my nephew," said Tootie. "Great nephew," said the boy, "and I hope I don't need stitches. Do you think I need stitches?" "His name is William," said Tootie. "William Spiver, actually," said Tootie's nephew. "I prefer to be called William Spiver. It distinguishes me from the multiplicity of Williams all over the world." He smiled. "It's a pleasure to meet you, whoever you are. I would shake your hand, but as I said, I think I'm bleeding. Also, I'm blind." "You are not blind," said Tootie. "I am suffering from a temporary blindness induced by trauma," said William Spiver. Temporary blindness induced by trauma? The word sent a chill down Flora's spine. So trauma is when something really devastating or bad happens to you, or something really shocking. So he's saying that he has gone through something so terrible that it struck him blind. But Tootie doesn't believe him, but William seems to believe it. The words sent a chill down Flora's spine. Seemingly there was no end of things that could go wrong with human beings. Why hadn't Terrible Things Can Happen to You done an issue on temporary blindness induced by trauma? Or for that matter, on extended hallucinations? "I am temporarily blind," said William Spiver again. "How unfortunate," said Flora's mother. "He's not blind," said Tootie. "But, as of this morning, he is staying with me for the summer. Imagine my surprise and excitement." "I have nowhere else to go, Great Aunt Tootie," said William Spiver. "You know that. I am at the mercy of the winds of fate." "Oh," said Flora's mother. She clapped her hands. "How wonderful! A little friend for Flora." "I don't need a little friend," said Flora. "Of course you do," said her mother. She turned to Tootie. "Flora's lonely. She spends far too much time reading comic books. I've tried to break her of that habit, but I'm very busy with my novel writing, and she's alone a lot. I'm worried it'll make her strange." "I'm not strange," said Flora. This seemed like a safe statement to make when someone as truly, profoundly strange as William Spiver was standing beside her. "I'd be happy to be your friend," said William Spiver. Honored, he bowed. How lovely, said Flora's mother. Yes, how lovely, said Flora. The blind, said William Spiver, even the temporarily blind, have an excellent sense of smell. Oh, for heaven's sake, said Tooty, here we go. I have to tell you that I smell something out of the ordinary, something that is not usually smelled within the confines of the human domestic sphere, said William Spiver. He cleared his throat. I smell squirrel. Squirrel. Confronted with the spectacle of William Spiver, they'd forgotten about Ulysses. Flora and her mother and Tooty all turned and looked at Ulysses. He was still on top of Mary Ann, the lamp. He had managed to balance himself on the small blue and green globe that was at the center of the lampshade. That squirrel, said Flora's mother. He's rabid, diseased. He's got to go. Chapter 18. A Scientific Adventure. And after this chapter, we'll take our first break. Why don't you let me take the squirrel? Tooty said to Flora's mother. I'll return it to the wild. If you can call the backyard the wild, said William Spiver. Hush, William, said Tooty. She reached out for Ulysses. Don't touch it, shrieked Flora's mother. Not without gloves. It has some sort of disease. If you could just get me some gloves, then, said Tooty. I'll pluck the squirrel off the lampshade and whisk him out of here and set him free. The kids can come along. It'll be a scientific adventure. That doesn't sound very scientific to me, said William Spiver. Well, said Flora's mother, I don't know. Florabelle's father is coming to pick her up for their Saturday visit. He'll be here any minute now, and she's still in her pajamas. Florabelle? Said William Spiver. What a lovely, melodious name. So melodious comes from the word melody. So if something is melodious, what does it sound like? Think about that. It'll just take a minute, said Tooty in a low, soothing voice. The kids can get to know each other. I'll get you some gloves, said Flora's mother. And so here they were, walking over to Tooty's, getting to know each other or something. Tooty had on a pair of dishwashing gloves that went all the way up to her elbows. The gloves were bright pink, and they glowed in a cheery, radioactive sort of way. In Tooty's gloved hands was Ulysses, and behind Tooty was Flora. And next to Flora was William Spiver. His left hand rested on her shoulder. Do you mind, Florabelle? He'd said. Would it trouble you terribly if I put my hand on your shoulder and allowed you to guide me back to the house? The world is a treacherous place when you cannot see. Flora didn't bother pointing out to him that the world was a treacherous place when you could see. And speaking of treacherousness, things were not in any way progressing as Flora had planned. She'd envisioned Ulysses fighting crime, criminals, villainy, darkness, treachery. She'd imagined him flying through the world with her, Flora Buckman, at his side. Instead, here she was leading a temporarily blind boy through her backyard. It was anticlimactic, to say the least. So we know the prefix anti means not or against, and climactic comes from the word climax. So if something is anticlimactic, is it very exciting or not very exciting? Think about that. Have you released the squirrel yet, Great Aunt Tooty? No, said Tooty, I have not. Well, why do I sense there's more going on here than what meets the eye? Just keep quiet till we get back to the house, William, said Tooty. Can you do that? Keep quiet for a minute? Of course I can, said William Spiver. I'm an old pro at keeping quiet. Flora doubted very much that this was true. William Spiver squeezed her shoulder. May I ask how old you are, Florabelle? Don't squeeze my shoulder. I'm 10. I'm 11 years old, said William Spiver. Which surprises me, I must say. I feel much older than 11. Although also, I know for a fact I'm much smaller than your average 11-year-old. It may be that I'm shrinking. Trauma can hurt your growth. I'm not certain, however, if it can cause actual shrinkage. What is the traumatic event that turned you blind? Said Flora. I prefer not to discuss it right now. I don't want to alarm you. It's not possible to alarm me, said Flora. I'm a cynic. Nothing in human nature surprises a cynic. So you say, said William Spiver. The word cryptic popped into Flora's head. It was preceded by the word unnecessarily. Unnecessarily cryptic, said Flora out loud. I beg your pardon, said William Spiver. So cryptic kind of means like puzzling. But then they were at Tootie's house. They were walking through her backyard and into her kitchen, which smelled like bacon and lemons. Tootie put Ulysses down on the table. I don't understand, said William Spiver. We're back at your house, but I can still smell squirrel. Flora took the paper out of her pajamas. She handed it to Tootie. She felt like a spy, a successful, triumphant spy. Albeit a spy in pajamas. What's this? Said Tootie. It's proof that you aren't the victim of a hallucination, said Flora. Tootie held the paper in both hands. She stared at it. Squirtle, she said. Squirtle? Said William Spiver. Keep reading, said Flora. I am Ulysses, born anew. See, said Flora. Well, what does that even prove? Said William Spiver. What does it even mean? The squirrel's name is Ulysses, said Tootie. Wait a minute, said William Spiver. Are you saying a squirrel typed those words? Yes, said Flora. That's exactly what I'm saying. The hallucination extends, said Tootie. What hallucination? Said William Spiver. The squirrel is a superhero hallucination, said Tootie. Oh, surely you're joking, said William Spiver. Ulysses sat up on his hind legs and looked at William Spiver, and then at Tootie, and finally he turned his eyes to Flora. He raised his eyebrows and gave her a look full of questions, full of hope. Flora felt a pang of doubt. He was, after all, just a squirrel. She had no proof he was a superhero. What if there were some other explanation for those words? Also, there was Tootie's disturbing point to consider. What kind of superhero types? And then she thought about Alfred, how everyone doubted him, and how no one, except Dolores, his parakeet, knew that he was incandesto, and how no one, except Dolores, truly believed in him. Was it Flora's job to believe in Ulysses? And what did that make her? A parakeet? Let me get this straight, said William Spiver. You, a self-described cynic, are positing that this squirrel is a superhero? The words, do not hope, instead observe, flitted through Flora's brain. She took a deep breath and brushed the phrase away. The squirrel typed those words, she said. Well, said William Spiver, whose hand was still on Flora's shoulder. Why didn't he move his hand? Let's just approach this scientifically. We'll put the squirrel in front of Great Aunt Tootie's computer, and we'll ask him to type again. All right, it's break time. Step away from your screen. I'll see you in a minute.